Well, hello. Welcome to the show. IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling. I'm Sean Stires, along with Vince DeDario. It's been kind of a crazy day because first, Ryan, as some Irish Breakdown folks may know, Ryan's is it his son or daughter? I'm not even sure. Daughter. Okay. Out of the crib earlier today, so they had to make a trip to the emergency room. So there was no show, as many people know, earlier today. But his daughter is okay. That's the good news.
That's right.
And there will be an afternoon show tomorrow, and we're here right now. So let you judge if it's good news or bad news. Vince, you've been kind of under the weather yourself. How are you today?
Man, this is the first time I've been vertical in 3 days. So I feel great that I get to be here. It's probably good that I'm isolated around, in my own room here. I had to miss practice today. The first 5 periods that we get to see when we get to see so much. So I had to miss practice today, but I skipped school, but I'm ready to go back to normal for tonight and tomorrow. So all fired up and ready to go. I'll tell you what, man, just being in a dark room, with my eyes closed for 2 straight days, it was rough. It was rough, but I'm back.
I bet.
Fired up. And
I've never had to do anything like that. Never had to do anything like that. You mentioned today's practice. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say it's a little bit of the fact that I was not feeling well, obviously, but then just, hey, no, dad is sick. Got to leave dad alone. Total peace and quiet for 2 straight days. That's not terrible.
Well, glad to have you back. Glad you could make it. Vince will be here tomorrow as well. We've got a lot that we're going to touch on. If you see the title of the show today, we've got a lot of things we're going to talk about. We got a full practice Friday. Well, so we'll have some things, that come up there. We did have the partial practice today, and that was actually originally going to be a morning practice. Then it got moved to early afternoon, and then another email was sent, and it got pushed back another half hour after that. So the time changed a couple times. Not everybody got the emails, and people were cranky. That may or may not include me. I don't know, but we finally got in. But when we got in, there was some newsworthy stuff that we saw. And I'll just go ahead and remind you right now: like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. Here we go. Okay, so a lot to talk about today. Again, smash the like button if you would. So we watched the full practice Friday. That was our second and final full practice, and we'll get to some thoughts. Vince and I were both there for all of that. And of course, we're 12 days away from Notre Dame and Ohio State, so it is up on us right now. We saw the first 5 periods of practice this afternoon as the team kind of shifts its focus. They're getting into game prep now. Some of the drills and things they were doing, and who was working with who, and the order they were doing things was a little bit different maybe than we've seen before. Nothing really noteworthy, but they just a noticeable shift in how they were doing some things out there.
Yeah, and that's totally on schedule. With what they want to do. You're 2 weeks out. This is a great time to start actually prepping for an opponent. And he said it. Marcus Freeman said it over the weekend, I believe, or his last press conference. That was Saturday, wasn't it? Or Friday? It was in that neighborhood.
Thursday, day before the open practice.
He said Thursday's the last day. We're taking guys to the ground. We're peeling back. We're not going to be as physical. Things like that. Allow some of the bumps and bruises to heal, things of that nature, and just so everybody understands that's in the chat, nobody's officially out for the Ohio State game except for Avery Davis. It's
Correct.
The only one.
Correct.
The only one. So it's 2 weeks away. Some of the, the bumps, the bruises, the little nagging stuff. Now is the time to just get that stuff fixed. Have guys take a little bit of time out, because now it's more about, especially for the veterans, right? Especially for the Cam Harts of the world, the Jarrett Pattersons of the world, right? It's about mental reps.
The Josh Luggs of the world.
Absolutely. This is about mental
Year
reps.
6.
They've done this a million times. They don't need to be out there every single rep doing it every single time.
Right.
Everybody just needs to take a step back and relax. Camp, injuries happen. I will say, I think there's been less injuries this year than there's been in most of the fall camps that I can remember, to be
probably
honest with you. So, if you look at it that way, I think they're doing all right.
Thanks for stopping in, Frozen Burrito for Bill.
I love
Long-time
that.
listener,
That's great.
first-time caller. Glad to have him. So, again, we've got a lot of different kind of personnel, this is and that's, and some observations from Friday. Let's just jump into the news of the day that everyone is speculating about and sort of wringing their hands about right now. Cornerback Cam Hart did not practice
Correct.
today. He did show up at practice in uniform, but he did not practice today. Got there, after everybody else, did not practice. And now we can't really say a whole lot about it due to players and, injuries and privacy and all that different kind of stuff. I guess I would say this. I would expect Hart to probably miss at least a couple of practices.
Sure.
And then sort of see where things go from there.
Yes. Agreed.
I'm not, we obviously can't comment about, seriousness or whatever. I'll just say it's, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Look,
He's probably going to miss a couple practices, and then
Right.
we'll be evaluated after that point.
we're told it's not serious, and I'm not
Right.
saying anything that wasn't said already. So it's not serious. That's the most important thing. When I first saw Cam Hart and miss practice, of course, I freaked out too. I'll be the first one to admit it. I was like, oh boy, here we go. This isn't good. This is my guy. He's the linchpin to that secondary.
Right.
All these different things were starting to go through my head. And then I'm told it's not serious, so I'm not worried about it. So let's say he misses a week of practice. Let's just say it's a week. I don't even think it'll be that long, but let's say it's a week. Okay. Cam Hart is a returning starter. He is, he wasn't one of the preseason All-Americans, was he? One of the four?
No, he was
No.
on the Freaks list, though. He was on Bruce
Yes.
Feldman's Freaks list a couple of weeks
He's
ago.
on my preseason All-American list. Look, the guy's going to make plays. He's the best corner that they've got on the roster. He's got plenty of experience. He's going to be just fine. Not worried about it in any way, shape, or form. It's not serious. So this is the best time for an injury like this to happen, if you ask me, because frankly, the way I see it, he's got 2 weeks to get better. Because even if he doesn't practice all the way up until September 3rd, he's still my starter at corner, right?
Yeah.
There's not many other times during the season where you've got 2 weeks to just pump the brakes and relax. So to me, this is the best possible time for this to happen. And so I am not worried at all.
I don't know about best possible. Like a week ago might have been even
Okay,
better.
fair enough. But I guess I'm just saying
It's
I'm not
better
that
this
worried.
week than next week, though. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, just rest like some of these other guys, like Jarrett Patterson, for that matter. He's due to be reevaluated probably by this weekend, could start practicing this weekend, and he'll give it, that foot a go and kind of see how it goes. Marcus Freeman said that it'll come down to basically his pain tolerance and what, how much pain he's feeling, how much he can tolerate. So Patterson, and it was funny because when they were, we were out there so early that we were there for the walk across the street from the Goog, into the Irish Athletic Center. And so all these guys are trickling in. And then all of a sudden, here's this group of offensive linemen, and they're staying in like this really tight, bunched up little pack.
Of course they are.
And so they come across the street. Well, the reason they were, Jarrett Patterson was in the middle of the pack on his little scooter, with his leg wrapped up and all that stuff. Even though he was out there in the middle of the full practice Friday for everybody to see, it was like they were hiding him going in to the ice.
Well, and
so that was kind of funny.
What the funny part is, they're still the same camera guys that sit right at that entrance taking pictures of guys coming in. And they've told us very specifically, don't take pictures of injured guys.
Right.
And so the offensive line was taking that to heart. And they're like, you're not taking a picture of our guy.
You're going to make sure. You're going to make sure.
I like that. I dig it.
Yeah. But, I think it goes without saying, and I put the comment up a minute ago about Cam Hart, if it did turn into something more serious, which again, right now, we don't think that it is based on what we're hearing, especially if you're missing him against Ohio State, then you're in a pinch because you're talking about your best corner.
Absolutely.
And you've got some issues, so if Cam Hart, and this is a big if, I'm just saying if Cam Hart is out, what do you think the three corner positions look like? Field boundary and the nickel.
If he's out, that it gets really interesting. And there's a huge drop off, in my opinion, from Cam Hart and everybody else.
Yeah.
And so if he's out, my complete, the way I look at the Ohio State game changes drastically. You know what I mean? I mean, it just does. But I think, honestly, I hate to say this, but you might be getting Jaden Mickey his first start as a true freshman in the horseshoe, which scares me. But
I think Bracey goes outside potentially to replace Hart, and then Mickey is starting at the nickel. Yeah,
but I think they may start in the nickel. So I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think he would start in the nickel.
Kind of I guess and I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, in terms of you're right. We're on the same page.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. It would just be a natural progression of Bracey taking over for him, and then Mickey moving into Bracey's spot. And I think they're probably going to start in the nickel because of what Ohio State brings to the table from the wide receiver position, right? So I would be shocked, honestly, if they don't, unless they're just going to focus on the run and pray that they can stop the pass. But it's not the defensive outlook I would take. So we'll see how that goes. But that's what I would do. It would be just a natural bump progression.
Comments are flying left and right now. It's hard to keep up with it. Drunk Vigo, Notre Dame needs to drop leaflets over Ohio State's campus with propaganda that will demoralize them. Yes, that's right. Do it in Ukrainian too, just for the heck of it. And see if they can figure it out. Okay, so again, we expect, we don't expect this to be serious with Cam Hart, but he did miss today. And, we expect him probably to miss at least a couple of practices and be evaluated and reevaluated and kind of see how it goes. Now, some other news today that is on the brighter side.
I like
because we saw both Jayden Thomas and Jaden Thomas. Remember, he was out last week with a grade 1 hamstring, a little tweak of the hamstring. And then we saw him working with the training crew and all that stuff Friday when we were out there. Well, he was back today. And you know who else was back today with the wide receivers? Deion Colzie was back with the wide receivers today. So you had pretty close to full contingent of wide receivers out there because Xavier Watts was also still working with that crew. So that was about as many receivers as I can remember this season out there working with Chancey Stuckey. And then Marcus Freeman even snuck over for a drill or two. And he was out there kind of simulating being the defensive back with the receivers, running at him and, making a catch on the throws from Stuckey and stuff like that.
I love it. So, he understands where this game's going to be won and lost, and it's going to be on the outside. And the wide receivers got to show up, man. They got to play. They got to show up. And, I'm happy that all the wide receivers are excluding Avery Davis, of course. We know that he's gone for the season. But the guys that are available, that they were all out there, and they were all working, and they were all 100% ready to go, that is great news. I mean, that's great news, to be honest with you. Nobody's on the bike. It'll be even better if when we show up on Wednesday that nobody's on the bike, et cetera, and Thursday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Because, look, Jayden Thomas was the standout, obviously, the first full practice, and it was so much fun to watch. And he gave us all the excitement level of what could he be this year, right? And the next day he was on the bike. And we haven't really seen him back since that day. And so what is it going to look like for him once he's back, going through team, doing everything he's supposed to do? Can he stay there? That's always been the question mark for him. So we got to cross that hurdle. Same with Deion Colzie. Got to cross that hurdle with him too. So the opportunity's there for both of them. Well, they have to stay healthy.
Joe Wilkins still out there. Yeah. And Joe had a pretty good practice Friday when we were out there, I thought.
He did. I agree. He was very Joe Wilkins-esque.
Yes.
Which for people that don't understand what I'm saying by that is that, to me, Joe Wilkins is a nice complementary piece. He's a depth piece. He's a guy that's going to go out and get you first downs. He'll do what he needs to do. He's like a fourth or fifth guy for me. But he's an important piece. He is one of the veterans that's out there. And so you're going to need him. There's no doubt about it. But he's not Tobias Merriweather. He's not Lorenzo Styles, right? He's not Braden Lindsey. But he's still a needed piece. And it's okay to be that guy, right? It's okay to be that guy and not be a starter. Yeah. But you need him. I mean, you need the depth that he brings. And, he had a really nice catch. I watched Brian's highlight video that he put together today. He had a nice touchdown catch in there. The kid can play. he's just not a high-level player, but he's a nice depth player, depth piece, and that's good to see him out there running around and doing his thing.
By the way, I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but you know who shot that video, right?
Was that this guy?
You're looking at him.
Yeah, I figured. I figured.
It was, it was high quality stuff, I'm sure. But
you the man.
Yeah, we saw some routes there at the end. The quarterbacks, both Pine and Tyler Buchner, throwing passes. Speaking of which, I don't know. This will probably get some folks either way. Steve Angeli, the freshman, wearing number 7 today instead of number 18.
Well, yeah.
CJ Stroud, of course, is number 7. So, again, like you look at, he's basically scout team quarterback.
Yep.
For this game. So
which is where you should be as a freshman.
Yep,
I mean,
that's wearing red number 7 today.
100% anticipated. And look, he's got better arm talent than the other option to be the scout team quarterback, in my opinion. And so that's the guy who I would want running my show team. No doubt about it. So good call.
Xavier Watts out there working with the receivers, wearing that blue 26 again today. Apparently he's debating on what number he's going to wear going forward, because he was 4 with the defense. He can't be 4 with the offense because Lorenzo Styles already has that. So we got to talk to him after practice a little bit today. Okay. It was funny because he said, like, we asked him which he prefers, offense or defense, because he's still working at both right now, and it kind of moves around a little bit. But he was very complimentary of the kind of things he has already learned from Chancey Stuckey, for one, stuff that he said that he hadn't learned the last time he was playing wide receiver at Notre Dame. So, there's that. But at the same time, he said right now he probably prefers defense, fly around, hit people and stuff like that. But we'll see if maybe that changes over time, I guess.
Well, to me, it would change because he's going to get playing time on the offense, and the defensive side, I don't know that it felt like he was a little buried.
Still buried a little deeper.
And I don't know if that would have been the case by the time we get up to Ohio State. Maybe they were all still jockeying for position back there. I don't know.
Well,
but yeah.
We kind of speculated on, I think at one point, about might we see some 3 safety looks this season because of the depth at safety, like they had a few years ago when they had Gilman and Elliott and Kyle Hamilton all back there. And Chris O'Leary did not go into much detail, that we did see like some 3 safety a couple of different times in a drill or two. He did say, yeah, you might see some of that 3 safety this season. So there's that out there as well.
I feel like that's one of the deeper positions. And
he didn't, like, again, that's really about all he said. It's like, you could tell he didn't want to talk about it.
Well, that's fair.
He at least acknowledged it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I'll go back to this, Xavier Watts' number, right? To me, that's intriguing because is he going to wear a number that somebody doesn't have on offense and defense, right? And if that's the case, and is it going to be a single digit? Are you going to go with number 1, for example? Is it just going to be a number for offense? Does he, have a chance to play both? Like, there's really kind of a lot that goes into it because of the double number situation, right?
Very true. And there was a notable number change today as well. Logan Diggs, out of the red jersey for the first time last week. He was wearing red 22, remember? He was wearing blue 22 Friday. Well, today, blue 3. Logan Diggs is now number 3. Yes. And so, like, Styles was like, I don't really know, about 22. But Logan Diggs is wearing 3 now. So a number change for him.
So took Avery Davis's number, which is an interesting development, since Avery Davis is probably still going to be a captain, I would imagine. And so what is he going to wear 3 as well on the sidelines? Like, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I know. I was just reading one of these comments. It's like the Angeli stuff. I think people are mad about that already, but
that's great.
Yeah. I will say I thought he looked pretty good. Again, it's depth chart stuff. You've got 3s on 3s and stuff like that. He moved the ball. They got a touchdown at the end when he was on the field Friday. We saw him.
Yeah, he did. Yep. 3 wins, the 3s. Yeah, absolutely. And he had look, Steve Angeli, when he was running with the threes, when we saw him running with the threes, I mean, the threes had the 2 freshman tight ends, had Tobias Merriweather, it had Xavier Watts. Like, he's throwing to some dudes on the offensive side, right? So he had some. Jabron Payne was his running back, and I mean, he had some weapons there with the threes, and I don't know that it's going to stay that way for much longer. But he when you've got some guys to throw to like that, the offense was definitely more talented than the defense. I will say that.
Yeah, yep, for sure. One other thing, saw Jadarian Price in a walking boot. He was, on that left leg. He had the torn Achilles back in the summer. He was working with the trainers. That was the first time I remember seeing him with the trainers. And he was, when I walked by when we were leaving, he was pounding one of those big medicine balls and doing all that kind of stuff. And, he had his shirt and his shorts on and that kind of thing. But so that was at least good to see him out there for the first time. Sounds like making some progress. Let me just ask you, we were talking about Angeli. What did you think about what we saw from Buchner and Pine Friday? We got to see a lot of 11-on-11 stuff. We got to see some 7-on-7 as well.
Well, and I kind of mentioned this in the show on Friday that we did after the practice. It was, you have to understand what we were looking at, because there were 2 downfield throws all day. One was Drew Pine, which was underthrown and picked off by Brendan Joseph. The other one was Steve Angeli.
But it was also a nice pick by Joseph.
Oh, it was a great pick. Don't get me wrong, but it was underthrown. I mean, there was a step.
That's true. That's
true. The receiver had a step on both DBs, and it was underthrown. And Joseph
double coverage underthrown. Yep,
absolutely.
Yep.
And then Steve Angeli threw one up, also double coverage, but Xavier Watts went up and snagged it and took it down. Those are the only downfield throws of the day. So every single thing was either underneath, or it was, a swing pass to the running back, or something along those lines. Nothing beyond like 10 yards, right? So you got to understand what they were trying to do. Number one, we were all there, obviously. All the parents were there. It's kind of like a family day kind of thing. There is nothing to gain by tipping your hand and showing everybody everything at a practice like that. Yeah. So they're doing check downs and they're just working on, timing and everything. So my takeaway was that I love the timing and the relationships that Tyler Buchner has with the number ones. I thought that he was hitting guys in stride. I think that he's got a great relationship with Michael Mayer. I think he's got a great relationship with Lorenzo Styles, with Braden Lindsay. You can just see the relationship growing as they move along in the practices and things like that. He took 100% of the number 1 reps. Drew Pine took 100% of the number 2 reps. They were all doing the same thing. I still think Buchner was the more accurate quarterback on the day. The offense is just more explosive when he's in there.
Well, and that's, he was more accurate. There were more inconsistencies that we saw from Pine. Like you talked about that underthrow on the deep ball. We saw some other stuff, like a rollout where he was a little bit erratic. We saw him both high and low. He had a pass batted down at the line of scrimmage once, and it wasn't like awful, but he was definitely much more inconsistent. And I just keep coming back to the fact that we've talked about this before, but for the people who think that, who are basing all of their opinions of Tyler Buchner as a passer on the Virginia Tech game last year with, some of the inaccuracies and obviously the interceptions, this guy does not look like that guy right now. He is a very accurate, just like, and it surprised me a little bit because you kind of expect, again, like if you were going to base it just on what we saw last year, you might expect a little high, a little low, but you're right. Like timing, it's coming out like short slants, the shorter passes, timing routes and stuff like that. You were talking about, and he's not throwing behind guys. He's leading guys.
Right.
You talked about Michael Mayer, the pass that he threw on the far sideline to Michael Mayer. There were 2 defenders there. He threw it in a spot, let Michael Mayer use his size and, and go get it. And it was a completion, that's probably what you're going to have to do a lot of this year if Michael Mayer is going to catch a lot of passes, because we know that he's going to draw a lot of attention, especially early on until people figure out what this wide receiving core can be. And, if there's inconsistencies with the wide receiving core, then even more so he's going to have to. So I really like what we have seen from him. And between the 2, I'm not saying he has been absolutely perfect because he hasn't, but he has been much more the much more consistent passer of the football. And especially like the timing stuff, which again, based on watching him last year, you would not think would be a strength for him, but he's been pretty good at it so far.
Well, and you leaned over to me at one point, and you're like, people are going to be shocked at how accurate he is this season. And I said, you're right, because that's all people can remember is like the Virginia Tech game, for example, and some of the other inconsistent passing that he had last season during games, right? They don't have the ability that we have to see him in practice and see how he's grown and see how he actually has the opportunity to operate the entire playbook as opposed to a single package where they weren't asking him to sit in the pocket and pick people apart. That wasn't who he was asked to be last year, right? And so people need to understand that you're going to see a completely different playbook, number one, and a completely different Tyler Buchner than you saw last year. Is he still going to run the ball? Absolutely. That's a huge part of his game. It's a huge part of this offense. You have to account for his legs. But, man, people are going to be very, very, very surprised and happily surprised at how accurate he is throwing the football. It just needs guys on the other end to catch it. And so we'll see what happens there.
You're going to like what you see. I guarantee it. All right, we got a super chat from Garen. Watt should get a C on his chest. His actions have emulated what selfless service should be. Convince me otherwise. Well, I mean, I don't know what he's like as a, leader, day in and day out and doing all those kind of things. Because he hasn't got the playing opportunities just yet. But I mean, you're absolutely right about being selfless and making that position switch. And not only is he making a switch, he's doing double duty right now. He's practicing at both and going above and beyond. Like he's, doing extra time with both Chancey Stuckey and Chris O'Leary, like in the meeting rooms and the film rooms and all that stuff, doing extra work. So, I mean, he definitely is a team guy through and through. I'll give you that. No Whether or not he's a captain, I don't know. But, I mean, yeah.
His on-the-field actions, he absolutely deserves that kind of a recognition. Now, I don't know what he's like off the field. I don't know the answer to that. And when you get named a captain, it's about the whole picture, all of it, right?
Yes.
And so I can't really speak to that part of it. But based on what his track record for changing positions and doing all these other things, then I mean, he's clearly a leader on the field. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch his maturation process at the wide receiver position too.
Yes. One other thought on Friday, Maris Leofau, linebacker. We've heard that he has been limited. They've kind of got him on a pitch count and that kind of stuff. Maris did not see any action during any of the live reps, either the 7-on-7 or the 11-on-11. Now, today, again, when you're only watching the first 5 periods of practice, you're not seeing anything live. It is predominantly position drills. There was some special teams out there. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on. We're going to get to talk to Al Golden this Saturday. We're going to get to talk to both coordinators Saturday. So that's a question that we can talk to Al Golden about, where Maris Leofau is and maybe what they're expecting from him, because it looked like if the season started, when was that, Friday, that you'd have Bo Bauer, J.D. Bertrand, and Jack Kaiser as your 3 starting linebackers.
Yeah, and it's funny because again, it was a non-padded practice on Friday, right? And so, it is what it is. Not having him in is not going to hurt them in any way. We saw him standing off to the side. He looks healthy as a horse to me. I mean, I don't know what his injury status is, if they're just limiting him or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Look, I fully anticipate him to contribute on September 3rd. What does that mean? Is he starting? Is he subbing? Is he whatever? I don't know.
Exactly.
But I also feel like if you're going to beat Ohio State, and that's a huge if you're going to be competitive and if you are going to beat Ohio State, number 8 in white is going to have to be involved. And if he's not, then my confidence level, it dips a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I think he is a very important piece of that defense. And so
me too.
I think he needs to play. I hope he's healthy. I really do. They're being very tight-lipped about his situation. And look, if
Well, it could be a situation where they had a live scrimmage the day before.
right.
And, again, we don't know exactly what his reps look like there, but if he was playing live and getting live reps and they've got him on the quote unquote pitch count, then it would make sense that the next day you're not going to have him do a whole lot of live stuff because he was still out there, full uniform, doing the, position drills and all that. He was doing everything else. He was just doing nothing live in the 7-on-7 or 11-on-11.
So here's my conspiracy theory. Okay. As a coach. There's no film on him from last year, right? He's injured all year.
True.
Do I really want to put him out there front and center in front of all the media, all the family, all of these different things when I just had a full scrimmage the day before? Okay. And whether he played or not, I don't know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Okay. But I'm not going to purposely put him out there for everybody to see. You know what? I'm going to keep a little something close to the vest when it comes to Marist, right? And during the first 5 periods, all we see is like drills and things like that. And he's been doing that, right? It's only the 2 full practices that we haven't seen him doing anything. So I don't know. I'll be the conspiracy theorist, and I'll just say that Marcus Freeman's holding them back because they don't want to tip their hand defensively as to what they want to do. That's what I'll say. But again, that's Vince talking. That is not a source. That is nothing. Don't go running off to the boards and everything else. That's me talking what I would do in a non-padded practice where anybody and their brother were able to watch last Friday. I mean, it was packed with people. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. I can live with that. One other note I had with Jarrett Patterson out right now, Freeman said last Thursday that Andrew Kristofic and Rocco Spindler were splitting the reps. But then Friday, when we were there for practice, we didn't really see any of Rocco with the first team. It was predominantly Andrew Kristofic, unless maybe you saw a rep here or there. I saw a lot of Andrew Kristofic with the first team.
That's all I saw. And I saw Rocco with the second team the entire time we were there on Friday, which makes sense. I mean, Andrew,
experienced guy.
He started half the games last year, right? And going into a hostile environment like that, that's who I would put there. If Jarrett Patterson couldn't go, I would start Andrew Kristofic, be a short leash, right? If Rocco has been doing all the things that it sounds like he's been doing, it would be a short leash, but I would start with Andrew. And then if need be, then I go to Rocco. But I also fully anticipate Jarrett Patterson starting at left guard on September 3rd.
I would too. Vince, I'll circle back around since we've got several more viewers right now than we had at the start of the show when we were talking about Cam Hart. So just to touch on the Cam Hart situation for maybe some viewers who jumped in a little bit late and didn't hear us talking about it. Cam Hart missed practice today, and he has what we believe to be a minor injury that we can't really go into details about, but we expect him to probably miss at least a couple of practices, be reevaluated, see where it goes from there. But as you said earlier, this is not considered a serious, like a season-ending type thing by any means. It is very hopeful that he's going to be back sooner than later.
Right. It's just a couple of days out, hopefully maybe a week at the most, and then he'll be back. And if that's the case, he'll have an entire week to get ready for Ohio State. So not worried. Based on what we know, I'm not worried. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So could have been a lot worse.
Hugh Murtha, super chat.
Woo!
But he didn't. Thank you, Hugh. He didn't say anything. He just threw us $9.99. Thank you very much, Hugh.
If you got a question, Hugh, go ahead and throw it in. We'll pull it up. But
we'll do it.
Hey, we'll take it.
By the way, Vince, I was thinking about, we haven't really done this on this show before. I was thinking about mailbag tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about that?
I'm down because I can't do mailbags on Fridays anymore because I actually have a job where I have to do stuff. So I would love that, frankly. I would love a mailbag on tomorrow.
All right. We got a lot of people in here tonight. So you heard it here first. Tomorrow, Tuesday, live on YouTube. The podcast would drop Wednesday morning. But if you want to be in here live, get some questions in, we'll do us a little mailbag tomorrow. We'll still do rapid fire.
Yes.
But we'll start off with some mailbag.
And it won't be a marathon mailbag like other mailbags have been. This will be a Sean and Vince mailbag.
That's right. If you want the marathon mailbag,
you got to wait till Friday.
You wait for B. Driscoll on Friday. That's right. And then 6 hours later, I'll be starting a high school football game, and he'll still be going.
Yeah, exactly. I got to drive out to Portage on Friday night. So,
enjoy.
Yeah, fun times.
All right. Anything else from the practice that you were at, Vince, that stands out that we should touch on before we move along?
Well, here's what I will say. I will say, even though it was a non-padded practice, I was still very impressed with the offensive line and the push that they're still getting on the defense. And my caveat to this whole thing is that I know the defensive line is going to be good. I know it. It's going to happen. Like there's too much talent returning, and I have too much faith in the defense to think that that's not the case, right? And there's a source within the building, within the Goog, that was asked, is this similar? Could this be similar to the 2017 season where the offensive line was just dominating the defensive line and everybody was worried and maybe the defensive line stinks? No, it just turns out the Notre Dame offensive line was the Joe Moore Award winner that year.
Yeah.
And once they started playing games, it's like, no, this defense is pretty darn good. And when asked about that, could this be a 2017 offensive line? They're like, it's kind of trending that way. So that gives me, I'm not ready to go out on a limb and say that Notre Dame is going to be the best offensive line in the country. But if they're top 5, this is going to be a really fun offense to watch because that's a huge upgrade from where they were last year.
Well, I don't remember where they were in practice. I think it was maybe like midway through before they really, got into the 11-on-11 and that kind of stuff. But there were, so they were still doing position drills, and they took, because it was kind of muggy out there, they took a water break. And so every other position group is taking their water break, and there's Harry and the offensive lineman still going at it over there. Now they got to drink their water eventually, so he didn't deprive them, but they were still going at it, man. They were still going at it. Yep. And, I had the story early on in camp about these battles that are going on between these two lines, the offensive and defensive lines, and they are trying to win that battle for the neutral zone, see who can get in there first, get the push and all that kind of stuff. And I love it because we know what this offensive line was last year. And I know a lot of people were skeptical that Harry Hiestand could make a big impact in a quick amount of time, but he is still Harry Hiestand. He is still out there, the taskmaster,
And he controls the action, man.
We had Chris out there doing some video for us Friday, and it was still in the first 5 periods. And it was, when you can take videos and photos and stuff like that. And he's over there trying to get some video of one of the drills, and he stands like, "You're taking pictures of this? I don't want people taking pictures of this." And it's like, you're going to have to talk to Marcus, man, because it's the first 5 periods, and it says we're allowed to do it, It
was so funny. It was so funny because I watched the video clip that he was taking, and it was like, oh, did he put it down? I yelled at. It was great. It was so funny. It was so funny. But no, look, Harry is 100% in charge of that group. It is clear. It is obvious that they have adopted his personality, which they were lacking for so long. And it's music to my ears. I'm sorry, it is. And not, some people can't be coached like that, and I get it. But that's how I got coached. I feed off of that. And so I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him go, and I'm just like, I'm getting fired up and excited. And they are responding to his coaching. And that's the most important thing. So I think it's fantastic.
Yep. I agree. And yeah, he's got him going. And I think it's noteworthy that 2017 season, McGlinchey and Nelson obviously both went in the top 10.
Yeah.
They were the last Irish linemen to go in the first round, and that was Harry's last season in his first go-around at Notre Dame. And I think we're going to see some first-round guys going here within the next couple of years.
I think you've got a viable opportunity to have 3 guys from the 2022 offensive line go in the first round once they're draft eligible.
Yeah.
Patterson, Fisher, and Alt.
And Alt. Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a stretch. I really don't.
No, I agree. All right, Vince, ready for rapid fire?
Always. I come prepared. I come ready for rapid fire.
All right, let's do it. Fill in the blank on this first one. Seeing running backs Chris Tyree and Audric Estime on the field together several times during 11-on-11 at Friday's practice, sometimes with neither of them in the backfield, is blank.
Music to my ears or to my eyes, however you want to say it, right? Because clearly one of Tommy's best attributes, in my opinion, is his creativity. And with what people will call lack of depth at the running back position or the wide receiver position or whatever you want to call it, or the creation of depth at the tight end position, he's going to have to be creative. And he's going to put people in position to make plays that are most beneficial to Notre Dame. And he's going to be creative doing it. I mean, there was one time we saw 2 tight ends on one side, 2 wide receivers on the other side. You know, like you said, we saw 2 running backs in there and they weren't always in the backfield. And look,
I couldn't even keep track of all the combinations. I was trying.
And I know, because we kept trying to write down, who was in the game and all. I mean, it was just personnel moving in and out and in and out. And that's great. You got fresh legs. I'm telling you, this offense is going to be so much fun to watch. That's what I see coming. And, Marcus Freeman said there got to be a run-first offense. I agree with that, but that run-first offense can be a lot of fun to watch. And there can be a lot of good things to come from a run-first offense. And it's going to open up so much in the passing game. And we talked about the accuracy of Tyler Buchner already. I am excited to see the creativity from Tommy Rees. And I know it's cliche, and we've talked about it a lot, but the handcuffs are off, the leash is off, whatever you want to call it. We're going to see who Tommy Rees actually is with an entire offseason to play with the playbook and adapt to his personnel and all of these different things. We get to see it this year. This is a make or break season for Tommy Rees, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think he's gonna roll with it.
You said Tommy couldn't call a great game last year because we couldn't run the ball. And he called a great first half in the Fiesta Bowl, but couldn't run the ball in the second half.
And that's
when
tough.
They needed to. Yeah.
That's tough. It was a very simple fix for the Oklahoma State defense. They pressed our receivers. And if they listen to IB ever, they know that pressing the receivers is pretty much going to take them out of the game, and it pretty much did. So that was a problem. That's not going to be an issue this year. It was an issue in the past.
Yeah, and to the question that we were talking about with Tyree and Estime on the field at the same time, like if you told me that you were going to see that combination, you would naturally think, well, Tyree's going to be in the slot and Estime is going to be in the backfield.
Right.
But they're both split out a few times, and sometimes Estime is in the backfield. And just what we've seen so far, there was one time that Estime should have been bottled up, like the defensive line did get good push, and there was, he was all but swarmed in the backfield, and all of a sudden it's like a jump cut to his right and another jab step back to his left, and then he's 15 yards downfield. The guy has got such great moves, and just all this different personnel is going to cause so many different mismatches. And then whatever the combinations may be, like you said, 2 tight ends over here, a couple wide receivers over here. Oh, now we've got 2 running backs. There are just so many mismatches they can create with this personnel. I think it's going to be a ton of fun to watch. And again, like it's going to be harder for us to keep up with all the different personnel groupings because I think we're going to see so many of them.
Absolutely. And that, like I said, that's going to be the fun part. And you and I are going to be like writing down formations and things. It's going to take a lot to focus on what the heck we're seeing, but it's going to be so much fun because I think we're going to see stuff we haven't seen before. And that's the fun of it for me.
Yep. I agree. So CBS Sports did its preseason bowl projections recently. They have Notre Dame playing Clemson in the Orange Bowl. Would you sign up for that right now if you could?
I would not. And I just want to clarify that the Orange Bowl is not one of the semifinal games, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That is it would be a standard New Year's Six game, basically.
Right. So I know this is going to sound cocky, and I get it. I totally get it. But if they're in that game, that means they're 10-2, right?
Right.
Maybe even 9-3, depending on what the rest of the world of college football looks like. Okay. So to me, that's a consolation prize. And my sights are set higher than that. So I'm not just going to blindly take that. And again, if that's what ends up happening, they got to go win that game, which they haven't done, obviously. Yes. And that's a hurdle that they have not climbed yet. Okay. But I wouldn't just blindly take that. I think this team can be better than that. I think this team could be an 11-win team. And if that's the case, they're in the Final Four. And so I wouldn't take that right now. Maybe halfway through the season, I might have a different, answer for you. But right now, I would not take it. I wouldn't.
No, I agree, because, again, I think the reason I asked it this way is because there do seem to be so many fans who are convinced, it's going to be 9-3.
Sure.
They're looking at that right off the bat. I don't see it that way either. We know what the tough games are going to be, and of course, like if it was the Orange Bowl against Clemson, that also means it's a rematch.
Yeah,
against Clemson.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I wouldn't want that either, and I don't know that the people picking the bowls would want that matchup either. So
especially since they play in November, so it wouldn't even be that far away.
Right. That would not excite me in any way.
No, I completely agree with that. And again, we were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Is Notre Dame a legitimate national title contender? They are, at least through the end of the night on September 3rd. And depending on what happens in that game, like I said, I'm not writing it off and saying, well, it's going to be a moral victory if they were to play a close game but still lose. But the fact of the matter is, if they were to even play a close game and lose, especially since they are more than a 2-touchdown underdog and you're on the road and all these different scenarios, you would come out of that game still in the thick of the net. They're fifth going into that game. They're not going to fall that far if you lose a close game at Ohio State. As long as Ohio State does its thing the rest of the season and Notre Dame takes care of its business, they're going to be in title contention. Now, obviously, it makes the margin for error slimmer, but I think that they've got a much better chance. Again, expecting that everyone who's needs to be healthy is healthy and all that stuff. They got a much better chance in 12 days than a lot of people are giving them credit for right now.
Right. And as you said, even if they lose this game, if it's a competitive game, they're still in the national title hunt, because to be in the national title hunt, you got to be top 4. And if they lose to Ohio State, they run the table all the way to Clemson, and then they happen to beat Clemson, they're in the national title hunt, because you're going to be top 4 after that. And I don't see how they wouldn't, to be honest with you. So look, they're in the national title hunt until they're not. And when you're a top 5 team in the preseason, you're in the national title hunt. So I think that they've got a great opportunity. And somebody on the message board was talking about, if you went position by position, if we think the coaches will be better than the previous coach, like that kind of a thing. And somebody brought up the fact that Marcus Freeman, we don't know really anything about him from an in-game adjustment standpoint outside of the Fiesta Bowl. And I think we can kind of explain that away to a degree, right? But at the same time, I think he will have this team fired up for big games more so than the previous head coach. Now, there's a lot of other things that Marcus Freeman will need to do to be better than Brian Kelly. A lot of other things. But if we're just talking about getting up for a big game, I'm giving Marcus Freeman the advantage, hands down. This is a big game. So Notre Dame's going to be ready for this game. They're going to be ready for the Clemson game. They're going to be ready for the USC game, on the road at North Carolina, all of those different things. They're going to be ready to play. So that gives me hope as well that they're still going to be contending.
Yeah, I agree. He has said from day one since camp started, it's got to be hard, and he's made it hard.
Yeah.
But he's also there's also a good, upbeat kind of attitude at practice. You hear a lot of guys talking about, just sort of they haven't gone out of their way to say, well, it used to be this, now it's this. But you can just see this is a very young coaching staff, and it's a very energetic coaching staff, but it's also one who knows what they're doing. And I just really like watching a lot of these guys coach and the way they go about things, because there's a lot of skill being taught out there, in addition to, and the right things are being emphasized still. Like, you're worried about, because like ball security was such a big thing under Brian Kelly, as it should be under any coach, but it is also a big emphasis of Marcus Freeman and his staff. You're seeing both sides of the ball. Like the defensive guys are being emphasized, go get the ball. The offensive guys are being emphasized, protect the football, and just right on down the line. So it's a great staff. It really is. All right, Blake Grupe hit a 42-yard field goal at last Friday's practice, and it was one of these things where they stopped everything down and they're like, "Okay, Blake, 42-yard field goal," and then he actually got iced by Marcus Freeman, like he was in the process of the kick, which he made.
Noise on, and
they had the crowd noise on and the whole thing. So he made it, and then they made him kick it again right afterwards, and he still made it. Team conditioning was on the line with that field goal. If he hadn't made it, they were going to do some conditioning. He made it. So scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence in Grupe right now?
Well, and I listened to Coach Mason talk about the kicking and the competition and all of that, right? And he said that his range is up to 53 yards. And I would say 50 and under, I'm pretty confident, to be honest with you. And, if Notre Dame needs to hit a 55-yarder to win the game, that's 50-50 to begin with, no matter who your kicker is. That's a really hard kick to make, okay? A 43-yarder, you should be able to hit that 9 out of 10 times, if not higher than that percentage-wise, right?
Yes.
And there's a kicker on the local high school team I know can kick that. He happens to live upstairs. And so you've got to be able to hit that.
Does he pay rent, though?
No, he doesn't. But my point is, if he's 50 and under, which means the ball is placed, right? 50 and under. So the ball is placed anywhere in the 30 to the 40, right?
Yes.
Good to go. Okay. I have a lot of faith.
Yeah.
And those are going to be those are going to be the kicks that he's going to have most of the time. That's the vast majority of the kicks. We're talking end of half, end of game prayers. There's a lot of kickers that aren't going to hit that. So, you know what? That's okay. And Brian Mason was taking it personal that Blake Grupe's 5'8" too. He's like, "Oh, he's 5'8". He can't do it, right? He can't do it because he's small, So he was taking offense to that, which I did enjoy that to a degree. But I do have faith in the ball comes off his foot. It makes that sound that you want to hear a kicker make when he kicks the ball. I mean, it booms off of his foot.
And the thing, he's definitely, it's interesting. We've seen less place kicking this fall with all these opportunities than I thought we were probably going to get to see. Maybe they've been hiding it a little bit. I don't know. But you talked about Mason, and the thing that he talked about when he was asked about Grupe being more consistent is the entire operation. He said it's not just Grupe, it's all summer. John Sott came in, the punter from Harvard, and Sott is going to be the holder. And all summer, Vinson, snap to Sott, placement, Grupe kicks. That whole process they've been working on. And Mason talked about how that consistency and what they're getting in that process, that exchange, that whole operation there, that has led to Grupe being much more consistent. Now, you're right. I mean, he's still not going to have a huge leg like we might see McPherson, the freshman punter, who's going to actually handle kickoffs this season. Maybe you see him, like if it's the end of half situation or if it's end of game and you just, it's longer. Maybe you see him come in, attempt a field goal because he's got the bigger leg. Yeah, but you're right. Just consistently anyway. I think we've definitely seen in the chances that we've had, we've seen a more consistent Blake Grupe. We also actually saw Brian out there. Brian?
Yeah, Bryant.
Bryant.
91.
Thank you. Yes.
Josh Bryant, I believe is his name.
Yeah, he was 4 for 4. He moved back in 5-yard increments to I think around that same range is probably where he would have ended up. So.
It's funny because last year when it was Josh Bryant, it was the kicker last year.
Jonathan
Dorr. He always had the boomer of a leg, right? And Bryant was always just consistent. he was kind of the consistent short guy, no problem. He was more accurate, in my opinion, than Dorr was, but Dorr had the bigger leg. And he was the returner. So he was always going to get, those opportunities. And so Brian is not a bad backup to have around. And maybe he ends up taking the job next year after Groupie leaves. He's kind of a one and done, obviously, as a grad transfer. And so Blake Groupie's going to be fine, right? I hope there's no games that come down to kicks because I just hate that anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible for sure, but you better get it to be 45 and under. It's 45 and under. I feel really good about him hitting it. I do.
Yep, I agree. Fill in the blank. Urban Meyer returning to Fox's Big Noon Kickoff show is blank.
I think it's a good move. I have to try to separate Urban Meyer as a coach and analyst or whatever, the football side and the personal side, right?
Yeah.
He's a train wreck in one. He's very successful in the other, okay? And I guess we can take out his stint at the Jacksonville Jaguars because one bled into the other one. But as a college football analyst, I actually thought that was a good pairing with the guys that they had on the Fox Noon Kickoff. I had no problem with it. I enjoyed listening to him talk. So I think it's okay. I guess I'm selfish. I can look past all the off the field BS because all he's telling me is about what games to watch and what he sees when he's breaking down the film. You don't have to be a good person to tell me that, I guess. And so I think he gets along with those guys just fine.
True enough.
And I enjoy it. So I think it's a good move. I do.
And it's probably been long enough now that since he's been fired, that most people have probably even forgotten why he was fired because that's what, the way things work. But, Urban Meyer's back. I did find it interesting that Fox chose, rather than the big trumpets, here's our Big Noon Kickoff show, and here's here's the triumphant return of Urban Meyer.
Right.
They did it on a Friday. They they did the good old Friday afternoon news dump. Yeah. So that, hoping that as few people would talk about it as possible. And I did see, a little bit on social media and stuff like that, but you definitely didn't see as much about it as if you did it on a Monday or Tuesday. That's for sure.
Well, because where are they going to be the first weekend? They're going to be at the Notre Dame Ohio State game. Right. He's still revered on the Ohio State campus. And so it's going to be nothing but, hugs and kisses when he's on the set. So,
isn't that where he was, when he went to the bar and the girl was doing her thing? And weren't they in Columbus?
They clearly love him there.
Incident? Yeah. Bring him back, baby. Bring him back. Why not?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you like your coaches kicking kickers and doing whatever with their whoever's.
Yeah. Lock up your daughters that weekend, everybody.
I mean, he knows football, but he
does.
He's something.
He definitely is something. I don't have any respect for him as a man, but
I will say this. Do you remember way back when he was still at Utah and everyone was speculating about whether he was going to come to Notre Dame?
Oh, yes.
He did a one-on-one interview with me on my old radio show, and he had no reason. He had no reason. He's like, he's the Utah head coach. He did do the interview with me. And then, of course, he ends up going to Florida. Yeah. Then the funny thing was, about a year later, Notre Dame baseball was playing in an NCAA regional down there at Florida, and the whole Meyer family was sitting in the press box in their own personal booth sitting right next to me. So I had the Meyer experience.
Lucky you.
More than once. Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's coming back, though, baby. He's coming back. Fill in the blank on this one. It's blank that Nebraska head coach Scott Frost says his offensive linemen have puked 15 to 20 times every practice in training camp.
There's so many different words. Disturbing, too much information. Look, first day of fall camp, you're making guys puke. Okay, that's cool. But if they're doing 15 to 20 times, okay, number one, their nutrition intake is terrible. Okay. And number two, they're completely out of shape.
What are they eating and when are they eating it? Right. Yeah.
They're completely out of shape. What are you doing to these kids that they're puking 15 to 20 times a day during a 2-hour window of practice? Okay. You're doing something wrong, frankly. And if he says that publicly, if I'm the athletic director, I'm like, hey, coach, we need to have a chat here. What is going on at your practice? Because this isn't good.
And that's like the first thing, because he says this like he's bragging about it. Like, our practices are so tough. Our linemen are out here puking 15 to 20 times. One, it's got to be a complete exaggeration. You can't tell me 15 to 20 times. I mean, that is a bit much. But the first thing I thought of when I saw this is like, what's your summer conditioning program like? Because
just gave them the whole summer off.
Yeah, like it's one thing to be puking early in summer conditioning, but by the time actual practice rolls around, you should be in a little bit better shape by then, right? Again, like what's your whole nutritional plan and the whole thing. So I think he thought he was bragging about something. I think it calls into question a whole other line of questions, basically.
Are they working out like a cross-country team? Are they not focused on football at all? Like, I just don't understand it at all. I agree with you that he was probably exaggerating, but to what end? Like, nobody's sitting there like, oh,
yeah,
good job, coach.
Bravo, they're puking. Because this is like when I was in high school in the 80s, we never had summer conditioning and all that stuff like everybody is doing right now. We had like some weights and stuff like that, but we showed up on the first day of two-a-days, and that was the first time, you did any running with your team. And there was, I may or may not have lost a couple myself out there, but that's what everybody expected because it's the first day of two-a-days. You're sucking down too much water. So, you're giving it right back up again and all that stuff. But it's like, this is Division I big time football in Lincoln, Nebraska. Maybe there's too much corn in the whatever they're eating out there. It just seems a little excessive to me. Okay, last one for tonight, Vincenzo. There's this interesting theory going around about Tom Brady's absence from training camp. He's been gone for a while now. And this theory goes that he's missing it because he is taping episodes of The Masked Singer. Have you ever seen The Masked Singer?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. So the theory goes, well, the taping dates line up with his absence. Apparently they've been taping.
Somebody's got
he may have committed to do this and actually signed a contract when he originally retired, and then he unretired, so now he can't get out of it. And on top of that, The Masked Singer is a Fox show, which is also where Brady is going to go to work in broadcasting when he finally does retire. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked would you be if this is actually true? That Tom Brady has been missing training camp because he's taping episodes of The Masked Singer for Fox.
About a 3, maybe 3.5.
You'd be shocked at only at a 3.5?
Yeah, I would not be shocked that high because I would have been if you didn't ask me this question.
No.
You know what I mean? But now that I know that it's a possibility, it's not going to shock me. I mean, the dots have all been connected. It makes I can see where the conspiracy theory is lining up. I heard that he was on vacation with his family, but I guess we haven't seen pictures of that, right? And isn't that the big deal? Is like nobody knows where he's at and all these different things. And that
the initial talk was, Giselle is mad and because he's spending too much time away, and are they going to get divorced, and all this stuff? And obviously, hopefully, it doesn't come to that. But yeah, I mean, that was like the initial stuff was all about his family. Like she was mad because, she wanted him to retire to begin with because she wanted him to be around the family more.
Right. And I get that. Believe me, I get it. But it wouldn't surprise me because that sounds like something that he would do. Right. So, and once you're in a contract, here's what I'll say. He is very laser focused on his preparation. Okay. I feel like if he would have signed a contract when he retired, there would have been a way to get out of it so that he could be at training camp. So I will say that. If my wife's telling me I have to go on vacation to be with the family, I'm going on vacation to be with the family, and there's nothing that's going to stop that. So that's where my surprise would come in, is that that's what he decided to do as opposed to hanging with his family. That's where I would be surprised. But, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me all that much. People do crazy things all the time.
Yeah, I just feel like stepping away from training camp for The Masked Singer for a guy like Tom Brady.
Right.
That just, I think that he would just tell them, look, I've signed this contract. I'm going to work for you, whenever I retire. So, we'll just put this Masked Singer thing aside. That seems like a little bit too much for me, and again,
Yeah,
like you've got people, is there stuff with his dad? I've heard there's stuff with his mom. There's just all these different things floating around out there. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Maybe soon enough. But the Masked Singer thing just seems like too much for me.
Yeah, I get that.
It doesn't seem like Tom Brady would walk away from training camp to do a frivolous show like that.
If this was Gronk, 100%.
Now we're yes.
Right.
That's right. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Again, don't forget, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. And again, Vince, we're settled. We're doing a mailbag show tomorrow.
Love it.
That's right. And we had a very lively YouTube chat room tonight, so we appreciate it.
Good crowd.
There's a lot of stuff flying around out there, so save the energy. Come back strong. We need your energy tomorrow. We'll do a little mailbag show tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll do rapid fire at the end, but we'll do a little mailbag at the beginning. So mailbag time tomorrow. Looking forward to it.
Can't wait.
And again, because like Vince doesn't get to do Friday mailbags anymore, so he is totally jumping on it.
Love it.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks for joining us here in this show today. We will be back tomorrow, and the next time we talk to you, we'll be 11 days away from Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Can't wait.
It's going to be here before you know it. All right, we'll talk to you then. IB Nation's